Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Ignalina and today I'm here with knit and chat video. So I will be knitting on my boyfriend's sweater. I am trying to finish it for his birthday. I have 5 days left, so I think it will be enough to finish the ribbing, cast off and knit folded collar. I'm improvising the sweater. I was thinking of maybe I could write a pattern, but I have no idea if somebody would want to test it even, yet alone, knit it, I don't know, pay for it. And I was thinking, since I also hate paying for patterns, maybe, just try to write up and publish, just give back to the knitting community. And then I thought, why would someone would test a pattern, which is for free? But then I was thinking maybe someone would want to do like knit along, and while testing the pattern, getting full support from the designer. And yet again, if it is free, why should I add, put all this work if I just can, just not think about it and knit myself something else in the meantime. So yeah, I'm overthinking, but it has sleeves. It has like this contiguous design, so I'm just contiguously was knitting it and shaping it so it would look like satin sleeves, because I think this looks really sleek. I am working on the bottom ribbing, color left, and if I'm uploading this video when it is already finished, I will insert the picture to show you how it looks like. Maybe my boyfriend, he hates taking pictures, but I think maybe he will allow me to take a picture with the sweater since it's really important for me. So I try not to over photograph him, but in this case, maybe he will allow it, especially if it is without his face, so he can cannot say that, oh, his, face looks strange or whatever. Just, having on the model sweater. Even when I'm saying, taking a picture without the head, for him it just looks so strange idea. And for a lot of, knitting or modeling clothing, it's quite a normal thing. But yeah, so today's topic is actually about my plans to move abroad again, going back to Denmark, and all the thoughts and feelings. And I decided maybe to share my life story where I live to understand what is happening now a bit. And I thought it could be interesting for people like me who likes to hear about it, authentic people's stories, people's life, how they're making decisions, just a nitty chatty video about that. Okay, so let's start that I always started in my videos that I am from Lithuania but currently living in Norway, but that doesn't give a full picture. So I was born in Lithuanian capital Vilnius. I grew up in one of those Soviet Union housing units. I don't know how to say. It was 3 room, which were made to bedrooms, so no living room, small, really small kitchen, 1 toilet and 1 bathroom for 5 people. So it was a bit cramped, but most of my life I sort of have my own room, or just, sometimes sharing with my aunt. Yeah, it was normal. It was where I grew up. It was perfectly fine. Then I started studying information technologies in Vilnius University, and when I was in, the summer before finishing it, I met my current boyfriend, fiancé. Still he was in Vilnius, but he was preparing to move to Denmark to start his master's degree. He was chemist, so in chemistry. And I was finishing that winter my bachelor degree. And when I was finishing bachelor degree, I was thinking that, yes, I cannot move just because I like that guy after him to Denmark. So if I want to move, I need a reason. And he gave quite good reasons to study master's degree. And I thought, why? I hated studying. I was not enjoying. It was really stressful and it was like pushing up, and I really loved my job. But I decided that, it's not the worst thing you can do, sort of, for a boy and for yourself to get a master's degree. And then I really planned it well. My company had also a branch in Denmark, so it was possible, and I got approved to be relocated. and get less work hours because master's degree was way more intense than in the last year of bachelor's degree. So I would just reduce my work hours, and I needed that because in Denmark, okay, I didn't pay for my studies, and in Denmark, for European Union and Europe Economical Area countries, people, residents, citizens, so I think for Danish people, they just get scholarships, and for other EU citizens, you can get scholarship if you work at least 10 hours per week. I think it has to be at least 11. So I had, I think, 2 days of work to do, and then I was getting my salary and then almost doubling it with scholarship. So I didn't have to pay. I was able to survive. My family is not rich, and they wouldn't be able to support me in Denmark because Lithuania was way more salaries way lower, and in Denmark all the rent, and food prices were really huge in comparison to Lithuania. So I was able to support myself. I was able to live independently. So that was nice. I was living in dorm room in Denmark, sharing kitchen with 14 other people, and that didn't end up well, but I have my own room and my own bathroom and shower. It was really small room, and it was just like, it felt like 1 quadratic meter, just toilet, sink, and like shower cap. But it worked. Okay, it didn't work that well because the water pressure was really small and the heating was broken, so the shower was really cold, and I didn't have the enough water to warm me up in winter time. But yeah, that was for another day. And then sharing kitchen with a lot of people when you're introverted, and yeah, it wasn't. By the end of those 2 years, I was getting really tired, like cycling to university and work. And to university it was 10 kilometers distance to drive in one way and then another. And to my work it was, I think, 16 kilometer distance with bike. So it's almost an hour, even with an electric bike, and Denmark was quite flat. But it was tiring, especially in rain. Once when I reached the work, I just take out my shoe and pour water out of it, because some car drove through the puddle and just pulled the water falls at me and then in my shoes. I was getting tired of all these and the new student living and etc. And but when I was also finishing, not finishing. So my boyfriend was 1 year ahead, and master's degree was taking 2 years. And in the second year, he finished. When he finished his master's degree, he found a job in Trondheim in Norway. I never heard about that city before. At that time, I knew only Oslo in Norway, and it's sort of in the middle of Norway. So yeah, he moved here, he found a job, he found a place where to stay, and he moved here. And I was left with 1 year of my master's degree, so I finished. So I think a lot of that autumn, a lot of weekends I was flying to meet him, to visit him here, and he would fly to visit me. But when my master's degree time came, it also Corona came. So in 2020, springtime, I was finishing my master's degree, Corona started, so I unofficially, it was in 2020, because yes, in 19 he moved here. That autumn, we flew back and forth, and then when Corona started, so I stayed in Corona time here, because work from home, and I'm in IT, writing my master's degree, working with computers. It was totally possible. It's more than possible was doing from here. So I did it. And then, I was starting living more in Norway than in Denmark, and officially I was still in Denmark getting Danish salary and, finishing Danish education. And since I knew that I will be moving, it was also funny because I never fully learned Danish. I have basics, I went to some courses, but I sort of stopped because, maybe I'm moving, so I don't need. But even Scandinavian languages are similar but not the same. So they are not in writing. At least Danish and Norwegian can be quite similar, and it's easy to understand, even if they have different some spellings in some words, and in some cases they use different words. But it is way easier to understand, written word, and they speak totally different. And in Norway, every single part of the Norway have their own dialect, so sometimes they have troubles speaking with each other, and especially for the people who are just learning their language, it is way more fun. Because they cannot, even if you learn something, you still cannot understand people around you. So yeah, he moved here. I was sort of working, living. Then I finished my master's degree. And in Corona times, there were not so many companies who wanted to hire people. And even, in IT, and everyone was saying, oh, it's so easy to find a job. There's so many. And maybe Trondheim is not that big. But it took me half a year to find here a job, to move from after, hiring freezes, because even companies were not going bankrupt. They didn't want to hire more because we're unsure about what will happen in the future. Maybe companies go bankrupt, their customers may go bankrupt, and they then lose a lot of income. So if they hire more people, they will need to fire more people. So maybe just try to do their best with current employees and hope for the best. But yeah, almost a year into Corona, so half a year after I finished my master's degree, I found a job here in Trondheim. I was happy. I finally moved. I didn't need, to pay rent in Denmark. We can share rent here. I was getting full salary, and we lived happily together here in Trondheim. So in this time, I finally had time for my hobbies. I recently started learning Norwegian. And yet again we are moving, but that's irony in my life, and I think all the Norwegian I learned is just supporting my Danish too, in a way that maybe my dictionary, my grammar is a bit better, even if it's not exactly the same, but they're really similar languages that it will really help if you know one or another. So I'm not thinking that I'm wasting my time, but it's just funny of this irony that I started learning when we just deciding to move. So let me just check that I didn't mess up my stitches. No. So yeah, we live here, and I lived here, I think officially for this is my 4th year, and I think maybe 5 years. So at first he worked for a few years, or maybe 3 years, and the company. He originally found a job in Trondheim, and then he decided that he wants to do a PhD, and we got engaged while living in Norway. So it's also, as he said, we got engaged in Svalbard, which is not sort of Norway's territory, but not Norway's territory. So we sort of got engaged in Norway, but sort of not, but at least while we live here. And then he decided to do his PhD, and at that time I was thinking, to learn more Norwegian, and he was thinking, maybe go back to Denmark, to the university we were finished before, DTU, Technical University of Denmark, or study in Norway, in Trondheim, in NTNU. I have no idea what it stands for. But yeah, so he was, playing with a few ideas, and he decided to do his PhD here in Trondheim in NTNU. And now it was started his last year of his PhD, and he started applying to jobs. In my idea, it was maybe too early. And by the end of his search, he started maybe searching for a job after PhD when it was 1.5 years left, and nobody was just understanding him. And I'm just, how would someone would want to hire someone, a year and half in advance? So when he was saying, in June that he can start working in, October, he was talking not about this year's October, but next year's October. So of course nobody was hiring him. But at the same time, he managed to improve his CV, so it would go to more, interviews and etc. So he updated, his strategy and whatsoever, and he started getting more interviews. And he also talked with his supervisor that he can complete his PhD sooner, or at least he can start working earlier, and then maybe finishing touches while working, or just be sort of ready and then just prepare for defense while working in another company. So sort of he allowed him to start from the new year working, and he found a sort of dream job because they were, the requirements were really high. He was not, thinking maybe he's good enough, but at the same time he decided, well, I'm not losing anything to applying to there. They asked for 10 years of experience, and maybe he doesn't have exactly 10 years of experience, but he is really workaholic person who learns a lot of, he's really interested in what he's doing. So, sometimes experience is not exactly transferable, and sometimes I'm afraid that I am not that dedicated to my work to find, for myself a good job. I feel like I way more enjoying Scandinavian work-life balance than, I like knitting, I like having hobbies, I like create videos. I like to do a lot of stuff, not just work, and he doesn't see anything bad, going, working. I think he works more than he is supposed to, even, like staying longer, because he is so passionate about it, he's passionate about seeing, finishing up his tests or his work at lab, to seeing the results, what is, and if it is, unsuccessful day, he feels almost bad that he doesn't producing. I don't think that it is healthiest mindset, but I feel like this is quite for the companies who hire. It's really nice to have such workers, such dedicated workers, and not like me who likes work-life balance and either have to be motivated. But yes, yet again, he's interested in, and now he found also a position where he feels like it would be really interesting position. And he was talking with 2 more companies, and yeah, for the move, the idea is that as a chemist, there's less job opportunities for him as it would be for me as a software engineer. So he is applying first, and he is applying, in the whole Scandinavia. He thought about where the best work would be, and we thought that better place in Scandinavia there probably isn't. There were countries it would be really nice to work in, where it would be maybe a good balance, really interesting to live in, like, I don't know, Canada, New Zealand, maybe Australia, but it can be too hot, and maybe USA, but I don't know. But the biggest problem is that they have really huge housing crisis. They know that people are spending a lot of their income on rent, or almost sometimes impossible to buy. And it's not the life we want. I really loved living in Trondheim because I felt like it's perfectly sized cities, not too big, not too small. I really hate multi-million people cities. I like Norway. Actually, I really like Norway, and I didn't want to leave. And that inertia when you're going somewhere and you don't want to change. So at first I was, okay, we maybe move, and okay, probably after his PhD it won't be possible to find a good job here in the city, so probably we'll move. And now in Scandinavia, but at the same time Scandinavia is still easy in a way that we know the culture. He learned both Norwegian and Danish. At the same time, I am not able to learn those languages. So yeah, shame on me. So, and Scandinavia culture we like, we have nothing against it, and maybe not living in the capital, central areas, it would be just, we think that it would be provide us like a good it will be good way of living, but good living situation. I think you would earn, you could maybe buy an apartment or get a loan for apartment, your own, you can bring your family, there is a lot of nature. Maybe in Denmark in Denmark they are just flat, and here they have mountains, so I will miss mountains. And then we were, started talking. So of course I was prioritizing to staying in Norway because it felt easier, and it felt like we have like banking history. So maybe getting a loan for our own flat, it would be possible, because my biggest dream was, to own my fucking house or flat where I would be living. I don't discriminate, house or apartment, both sounds fine. So I was way more, and I thought that it will be way more achievable if staying in Norway. By comparison with Denmark, it's in the area at first he was applying to, but he didn't got a job. It would be twice cheaper housing, but I guess in Denmark his salary is bigger, and my Danish friend said that I may expect, quite also good salary, so it would be increased from here. So that is good to know. And then the last two more positions where he didn't got rejected, but they were not as far in the interview process. So one of them were still in Norway one, but it was in the south tip of Norway, Kristiansand, and that commune, like area around the city, they have just maybe one, like it's small city, maybe town. I don't know what the difference between city and town, so I can misuse those words. Maybe it's town is a better word. And I think in the whole area, maybe it is around 100,000 inhabitants, and there's not so many job opportunities. And even that company where he is applying, he said, were really interesting, really nice. And we went into Kristiansand, and the nature is amazing. It's a beautiful place to live. But I was really afraid that I think they maybe had 6 positions for development for software engineering, so it could be that none of them would fit, and I don't know the language, so I'm not always the best fit, so it would be way more difficult to get a job. And yet again, if someone loses the job or wants to change because someone doesn't like their job, it would be really difficult because it's such a small place. But from nature side and in another way, it would be nice, but I didn't want to actually. And another place, and I wanted the least to move to Sweden, because there's like country we never lived in, so getting documentation again, like building credit history from the zero, from the scratch, so you don't have history. And in Sweden, they were a year ago really famous about their shootings and those immigrants crisis from conflicted countries in the conflicts, which are, so they people who run from war and etc. So I was maybe thinking that maybe that Sweden is not the best, but at the same time I think he was looking at job or had interview in Gothenburg, which is the second largest Sweden city, and I think his size is similar to Vilnius, where I grew up. So I thought, okay, Vilnius was big enough, it has more enough work opportunities. Sometimes maybe it's already too big, but at least for possibilities to find a job, to live, it sounds fine. In comparison with my beloved home countries, always can bring blue pluses. Biased, and of course it is closer to Lithuania than where we live now. We don't have direct flights from here. We have direct flight to Riga, which is in Latvia, and it takes time to go back to Lithuania and money because we don't have cheap flights. And it was the job where he got. It was in Copenhagen area. And the good thing is that living not in the central Copenhagen, but Copenhagen area, it's way more affordable. It is way more possible to rent and to buy. It was almost, because that was the first thing I was checking when he said, "Oh, I have interview there," and I was checking the housing market. Imagine if we need to find what prices there are on, what is like normal, to get to know what to expect in a sort of way. And he was dodging it, don't plan ahead. And I need to make it, I need to almost plan ahead to feel like this is not a tragedy to change life, because the life you're living now, everything is planned, everything is done. So it's just it's comfort, and moving is out of your comfort zone. So just de-stress myself. I was doing like research, we know about it. And so I was thinking that even living in that area is fine. Copenhagen is huge. There's a lot of job opportunities, so probably I would find something. And that place is on it's still Copenhagen's city train line. So a lot of areas would be, easily reachable by public transport, even if biking now would be not doable, because I think that place is maybe 40 kilometers away from the city center, so it's not bikeable anymore. But yeah, or in other places, if it is outside Copenhagen, maybe you finally would buy a car, because I would love to have a car, but it is expense not everyone needs, and most of our life we didn't need it, so we don't have it, even if it is fun to have a car and have road trips or etc. But yeah, and with our future salaries, I think it would be possible to own a house. I think in that area they don't have, they have few apartments, but mostly houses or cottages. Yeah, maybe flats. But it would be way more possible to own a house and own a car, live a good life, maybe in the future have kids. So just like, okay, good life, we can move. So yeah, and Lithuania. Why not Lithuania? I would love to. I really want to go back there. I love my home country. The plan is not that we will never ever go back there, but the idea is to just collect experiences, live life and work experiences, and just see the world. And my boyfriend is the main stop why we are not moving back to Copenhagen, to Lithuania, since there are not so many job opportunities for him in Lithuania. I think we have more biochemist positions, but they are, I think, more specialist than workplaces. So then the salaries are not the highest, and yeah, I was working when I worked in Lithuania, I had the best job ever, and I am not having the best job now. So then he said that yes, he got a job. I was just finally, I can leave my current company. I can start looking, and I know location where I should start looking for jobs. And I don't see that many remote work opportunities. Maybe I don't searching for them good enough. But yeah, so I can start looking for a job, and I know where, and I can say, yes, I'm moving there for sure, But at the same time, there is difference between Danish and Norwegian laws. So for Norway, I think for Norway, when you're working full-time, I have to give notice 3 months. 3 months notice, so I can leave my job only after 3 months after I say that I'm leaving. And in Denmark, for the company to fire you, it depended on how long you worked. So I think if you worked less than 6 months, then I think it was 2 weeks, then a year, maybe a month, and up to half a year if you worked, I think, for 9 months or more, for 9 years or more in that company, then they have to, fire you 6 months in advance, or I think they have to pay for you for next 6 months. So maybe they, your shorter, I don't know, working period. I don't know. I never was fired. But when I needed to move out of Denmark, the person, if they want to leave a company, it is just only 1 month notice. Which I think is quite good for the companies who want to hire. When you say, hey, I can start, next month. Maybe I think in America, when they can fire people, the next day, and hire someone, next day, it sounds really stupid or strange. Oh, well, 1 month. But let me continue. So, at least this is what happens in Denmark, so which is what the acceptable level. And if I'm coming from Norway and I say that I can start working in 3 months, it's not that ideal. So maybe if they're choosing between two candidates that they need, something quicker, they won't choose me. And another thing, that if I'm still working from Norway, I am not that flexible, or at least now I cannot come to interviews in Copenhagen, even if I try to present myself as, someone who lives in Copenhagen, because I don't live here. And they probably won't want to fund my travel to come to the interviews. Even my boyfriend was paid to go to his interview, but they were hiring a chemist and they were hiring from a lot of different maybe countries. They were inviting people. So for them it was way more maybe straightforward design, and for IT I don't think that they hire from outside that often, and then they will say, oh yeah, for sure we are paying for your flights and hotel tickets and for your hotel. So I don't know. I don't think that they will want to pay for it, and then I become not as available, and I think that would reduce my chances to get a job. And of course, my another thing is that I don't understand Danish that well. Oh, okay. It was funny because now I see those job ads and I can read and understand what they say, but I know that in conversation I will just be totally lost after what's your name. Just that I may understand an answer, but a few more questions in and no, I'm not fluent. So I need to, and most of them speak English pretty well, but there's a company culture, what language is used in the offices. So if everyone is speaking in Danish and there's a new guy who doesn't speak, or they have customers to whom they should speak, and they shouldn't require for their customers in Denmark to speak English. So yeah, they won't want to hire me. So yeah, I'm not the most hireable person, and being in Norway might be not the best idea. This is why we start talking. This is this week's news. So it's just really fresh, nothing planned. I think already my boyfriend only had his start date, so it will be March 1st when he starts working for that company. So he starts living, and they are helping for him to get temporary apartment and then rent his own apartment. But yeah, so we started talking that maybe it would be a good not financial, but a good decision for me to just say that I'm leaving my current company before I land a job, because most likely I wouldn't land a job and then move together to that Copenhagen area, and then finish up my job interview, and then I just could say that, oh, I can start work from next month or whatever, which technically isn't the worst thing. I would maybe I will even get a little bit break between two jobs, but I was raised to be afraid of it. I was raised that you cannot depend on someone. You have to, support yourself, And as a woman, if you put yourself in situations where men, support you, then you become, less independent. You are losing maybe your value. You're losing your almost voting right, because then, whose money, that person leaves the house and etc. And I have maybe not the healthiest understanding about it, or it's more about feelings, not understanding logically. I think it's totally fine, and my boyfriend said yeah, he will pay for rent and food, and I just could apply for a job. But at the same time I know that he doesn't want housewife. He doesn't want someone to depend on him, and I also don't want to. I like having my hobbies and etc. And yeah, so these are and those what ifs. What if I wouldn't find a job? What if I am just not good enough? Or for example, in one position I was not applying because it was written just for other people who are just finishing their degree, and just I'm not that beginner. And then another position is senior, and then just maybe I'm not senior enough. Maybe I'm just don't know the right languages. Maybe they're just not good enough. And yeah, so those are fears, clinging into me. And yeah, it's scary. It's scary to think of, to leave your job and jump into this unknown, even if it is something I really want to do. I was thinking, my cousin was really asking good questions. and it made me think what I actually want. So I don't mind to move together with him, and I even want to. Nothing holds me here in Norway. My biggest dreams are almost to own a house and, start creating family, but at the same time to be able to do those things, and the jobs requires you need finances to finance, to give your, to have a house and you have kids and have a stable environment and maybe even a stable relationship, not to be dependent. I couldn't. If it is scary, and I don't know, it's scary. And I don't know if you can see or hear that it reaches my core fear in a way, that I almost can start crying of this, instability idea. And I was thinking that it also came from my mom, because she is a really independent woman. She had me really young. She was 22 years old. Oh, so I'm turning 30 next year, so I was maybe 7 years old when she was my age. So it's like having a 7-year-old kid in your life. And when she started, my father wasn't supportive, wasn't, financially providing. And she said she would be hungry, or if not my grandmother, my father's mother. She was feeding her, and making sure that my mom fed. And she said, the child support money from government was just enough to buy, child things like Pampers. I don't know how they actually say in English. I forgot that word. Diapers. Yes, diapers. To buy some diapers and maybe, clothing or two for the kid, and that was it. She was so young, she didn't have a job, and my father was not supporting. And her father was also not that involved, and her mother sadly was already dead. So she didn't have a lot of support when she had me. So she learned that she has to support herself, or nobody, will take care of her. And she was giving those lessons to me, even if it is not like sit down and talk about it. It was more like from her point of view, her mindset, and how she was acting, and how she was talking about losing a job, for example. And she was always good at saving money, having a few months in advance. And when she left, and she would talk about, I don't know if I can work here for a long, this was so. She had one really stressful job, and she was saying, I might not find another maybe job. We almost don't have any money. She had a lot of savings. She's really good at saving money. But she was, presenting that instability in a way that you have to keep the job. You have to have income. You have to not be dependent on anyone else. And my mom was also saying those around the lines about maybe if she would become disabled or needing other people's support, she would maybe prefer in those cases maybe to die or something like that. Not that something is wrong about it, but that it just almost, like in her case, she didn't felt like she has someone to lean on in a way, and then, become a, I don't know, dependable on someone who doesn't love you, doesn't want to take care of you. So then it becomes a really shitty situation, and she just didn't really want to. And I think that is the mindset, which is maybe not the healthiest and not the best one to have, for me. But I feel like that is like basics. When my vision is not good, I'm now put on contact lenses in my eyes, but my vision is maybe -5, or minus something like that, -5 to 5.25, and maybe 5.5. I don't remember actually, but yeah. So my vision was not good, and in my teenage years, every single year I would, not every year, but almost every year I would go to the eye doctor, oculist. How they called? I don't remember. So I would go to there, and they say that my vision is going worse and worse. So of course I needed to play out in my mind the worst case scenarios, and seeing, how my mom was having this attitude that you cannot be dependable of others. I was thinking, if I would get blind, that I would have to think of way to kill myself. I'm not saying that, those people, that blind people, do not have... I don't say that those people don't deserve to live. It's just the feeling that I cannot become this dependable of someone else, not used to the world, that I, wouldn't have enough, didn't felt secure enough to depend on someone else. So then you have to think about the way out. And that is not a good mindset to have. I don't think so. And I'm really sorry if this turned really dark, but I just wanted to put out loud why it feels so difficult to let it go, even when I think it's the most, even financially, the best solution, because probably my salary would be higher in Denmark. So, getting hired in Denmark quicker than, trying to stay here as long as possible, it just wouldn't, I think it would prolong. Maybe I will still find a job, but it could take, extra 3 or half a year to find a job if I'm still staying here in Norway, but looking for a job in Denmark. And then it just would postpone other life plans and just, let it go and, have faith that I will find a job, that I won't be homeless, and have a faith that my boyfriend won't, leave me if in 2 weeks I don't find a job. Is just, for me, a leap of faith and just letting control of my life. Because I wouldn't move to Denmark without a job. Because in Denmark I moved because I found there were 3 main things. Housing, so get a dormitory, student housing, job, having income, have how to survive, because as I said, my parents are not rich, they wouldn't be able to support me, and then, have a reason like a master's degree, and then sort of transportation, but that was easier to solve on the go. But then I also bought a electric bike before I moved to Denmark, and then I shipped it, or sent it with a car. Then I moved to Trondheim too, after I found a job. I was not leaving Denmark, I was not leaving my job until I found another one. So in my adult life, when I'm supporting myself and I'm living on my own, not with my parents, I never was without a job. And this is, I guess, is... I forgot the word. So this is a privilege, I think. And this is really, I'm honored that was my life. I'm getting closer to 30 years old, and after university, and while in university I had a job, I was able to support myself. Now I have no loans. This is really, really privileged position to be in this world. But that doesn't mean that I don't have huge fears around it, that I am not super scared of let it go and believe. And mentally I think it would be so good to have like 1 month in between jobs for myself, just maybe spend on hobbies, something like that, and just living, like maybe I don't know if we would like moving in time, even those time, not just move in the weekend and the next day you could start work, just have time for myself a little bit, to just relax, to just a little bit, enjoy life before going again to 9 to 5. But that scare is real. So I guess that's it about places where I lived in, about my future plans to move, and vulnerable thoughts why it is not that easy to let it go, how deeply afraid I am of upcoming potential changes. But yeah, I need a few rounds in my sweater, and I hope you see you next time. Bye.